Hi folks, welcome to Coffee and Colossians. It's Thursday afternoon. It's a beautiful evening as the sun goes down, so I need to record it before then. I love sitting out on my balcony. It's just, I can't describe just the sheer sense of thankfulness and to be honest, the sense of privilege that I have in being able to do this. I sit out here and I read. I've just been reading this afternoon The Life of David Livingstone by Robertson from 1882. Just extraordinary, beautiful. I'll tell you the story about that book, or maybe I've told you already. I quite often tell stories that I've told before. I'll tell you the story of that book another time, because now we're going to turn to Colossians 2 and verse 18. Do not let anyone who delights in false humility and the worship of angels disqualify you. Such a person also goes into great detail about what they have seen. They are puffed up with idle notions by their unspiritual mind. Okay, we're going to just do the first part of that with humility. Now, we saw yesterday that about the shadows and reality, and just a question that arose, and it's a very simple question. Is this ditching the Old Testament? No, it's not ditching the Old Testament. It's reading the Old Testament in the light of Christ. The new is in the old concealed, the old is in the new revealed, as the saying goes. What we saw yesterday, it's arguing against the shadows of religion, religious experience, and it's going right to the heart of the matter. Christ. Now, humility. What's wrong with being humble? You think, oh, that's a great deal. Everyone should want to be humble. What does it mean? Verse 20, since you died with Christ to the elemental forces of this world, why, as though you still belong to the world, do you not submit to its rules? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. Now, we'll come to that next week. But this is a kind of humility that's self-denial, and yet it's not self-denial because it lets everyone know that you're denying yourself. It's the kind of thing that you fast so that you can receive visions. If you want to be more spiritual, you do sleep deprivation, or sleeping on beds of nails, hair shirts, cold showers, self-flagellation. I remember hearing a hippie band. I can't remember what they were called, but I remember them saying, you know, we wanted to be really spiritual, so we became vegetarian. And then we wanted to be even more spiritual, and so we became vegan. And then we wanted to really get super spiritual, so we became fruitarian. And then we really got spiritual. We just didn't eat or drink. That didn't last long, of course. So I think it's Alexander MacLaren. It's a quote from him. I think it was from him. It's strange that people try to make themselves more acceptable to God by making themselves uncomfortable. When I first heard that quote from MacLaren, I thought, yeah, that's what pews are for. But it wasn't. They weren't designed to make you uncomfortable. Or was it Simon the Stylite who sat for 36 years on the top of a stone column? Someone who delights in false humility. Oh, he's ever so humble, as Dickens would put it. But I've seen it. I've seen that affectation. I've gone to the door to visit somebody and they know that I'm the minister and they've been brought up in a godly home and they just burst out into spiritual language. And you just think, no, don't do that. Or you see it sometimes in public when religious leaders are trying to show how humble they are. I don't know. Don't let someone who delights in false humility disqualify you. That's an interesting thing. Don't be put off by them. Well, let me say something about what real humility is. You know, the real spirituality. I'll tell you what. We'll go to James. James chapter 4. There are numerous verses in the Bible, and humility is such a hard thing. You know, you're not going to write the book, are you, on how you became humble? But how do we know? How do we know what humility is? How do we know whether it's real or false? Sorry, by the way, for all the noise in the background. James 4 and verse 6. But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture said, God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. Submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil and he will flee from you. Come near to God and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord and he will lift you up. I think the answer in terms of real humility is for us to come before God and to, in some sense, see ourselves as God sees us. And that just would make us incredibly humble. You know, sometimes we are proud because we compare ourselves with other people who we think we're better than, and we're probably not, but that's still what we think. But to see ourselves as God sees us, when you have a real sense of the presence of God, you're just genuinely aware that you're not worthy. I really mean this, actually. I was so impressed by the Chinese brothers and sisters I was with at the weekend, and I genuinely came away thinking that I just wasn't worthy of their company. I found them to be absolutely lovely. Now, of course, they've got faults and problems, but you know what I'm trying to say? And that's just with human beings. But when you come into the presence of the Holy God, you fall down. We are genuinely just not worthy. And so we need real humility. Now, real humility isn't disparaging ourselves. It's Tim Keller's book, The Blessed Self-Forgetfulness, is such a great book. I'd highly recommend it to you. Just a tiny wee book, just one sermon, actually, I think it was. And people who are falsely humble, they're not forgetting themselves. People who are truly humble are forgetting themselves, and I think we do so by focusing on Christ. So I'll leave it there. See you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Bye.